There is less than 1 week until Donald Trump raises his hand and becomes president of the United States again, and there is malice in the air. This is the warning. Let's look over at CNN, where Scott Jennings, a man who I promise knows nothing about forest management and water policy or any Western issues, who is from a state, Kentucky, where the age of consent is 14. And if it wasn't for a state like California, Kentucky, well, it would be bankrupt. Kentucky is a donor state. Let me put it in a way that Scott Jennings would understand. He's from a state that's a welfare queen. It can't take care of itself. It lacks industry. It lacks grit, determination, all of the things that he decries about California. And listen, I'm just using Scott Jennings' words here. I'm just using the Jennings standard. I'm not the side that started and stoked the cold Civil War. But if we are to have one, let us at least tell the truth about it. Because, but for California, many of the states that have given to the United States, well, not much in recent times, except putridity in the form of MAGA senators, they don't stack up to California. California sends a lot of money to Washington, D.C. It's a donor state. For every dollar that California sends, unlike Kentucky, which gets about $1.40 back, California gets 65 cents back. It is the economic engine of the country. It is the cultural engine of the country. It is the scientific and technological engine of the country. It is our innovation center. It is the Golden State, and it is on fire. And people like Scott Jennings talk of partnership. They talk about Washington, D.C. will dictate to a state in the union of 40 million people what it can and cannot do, though it is sovereign. This lust for power, this thirst for control, is going to go to a very bad place. Let's listen to Scott Jennings.
There ought to be conditions on aid because
so the
obviously
next time Florida or Louisiana is dealing with a
that's
hurricane,
why I mentioned Katrina.
Yes. You want that aid to be conditional upon Washington dictating policy decisions in those states?
I want it to be conditional on knowing whether or not the state of California, in this case, is going to enact local policy decisions on forest management, on water resources management,
well, let me ask
so
you,
that it doesn't happen again.
I
I am not for a blank check to a state that has clearly failed and doesn't know how to manage fires. I would like to see a partnership between the state and Washington so that whatever money is being spent, look, I don't live in California.
And by the way, I've never done this. As someone who's been on television many thousands of times, I don't care necessarily to ever be on again. But I would, if you're a CNN producer, I would very much like the opportunity to come on any show to talk about any subject, anytime concerning the United States, concerning California, concerning these fires, concerning, say, the 10th Amendment to the Constitution of the United States. I'd like an opportunity to sit across from Scott Jennings and demonstrate for the CNN viewer his abject ignorance, his total and absolute stupefying idiocies. I'd like the opportunity to do something that never happens on CNN. I'd like the opportunity to confront Scott Jennings with reality. Here's the deal. When Scott Jennings talks about we and them and us, what's he talking about? California is an American state. California is in the United States. These are Americans. And this is the awful cost of Trump and the division and the rise of the idiocracy of which Scott Jennings, sneering, smug, arrogant, flushed with power, is a charter member of. Let's understand something. Donald Trump has no mandate. He won a plurality. He won the 17th or 18th biggest in the last 120 years. Yet he has the power. And people like Mike Johnson, who believe that people and dinosaurs walked around together 10,000 years ago, are going to deliver it because they hate the idea of California. They hate the tolerance. They hate the concept. They hate the modernism. It is the most successful state in the most successful society in the history of human civilization. And yet it's put down by fools like Scott Jennings. We see tough people forging through the toughest, hardest days of their life. And what do they get from their politicians in Washington? They get contempt. And what do people like Joe Scarborough demand? That those people show Donald Trump fealty. Let's watch this disgraceful episode.
Over the past week, Joe and I have heard from so many people, from political leaders to regular citizens, deeply dismayed by several of President-elect Trump's cabinet selections, and they are scared. Last Thursday, we expressed our own concerns on this broadcast and even said we would appreciate the opportunity to speak with the president-elect himself. On Friday, we were given the opportunity to do just that. Joe and I went to Mar-a-Lago to meet personally with President-elect Trump.
And it's going to come as no surprise to anybody who watches this show, has watched it over the past year or over the past decade, that we didn't see eye to eye on a lot of issues, and we told him so.
Joe and I realized it's time to do something different. And that starts with not only talking about Donald Trump, but also talking with him.
It wasn't so long ago that the great capitulation began with Joe Scarborough and Mika Brzezinski, who, history will record, started it. In the immediate aftermath of the election, they went as fast as they could to meet with the man that they called Hitler. And they said they did it for you, and that's what journalism is. Keeping the lines of communication open. And then there is Jeff Bezos, who in a matter of months has destroyed the Washington Post, one of the most venerable newspapers in the history of the United States. He has reduced it to nothingness. It's gone. Its best and its brightest are fleeing. Bob Iger at Disney, he laid down in front of Trump, imposing an absurdist lawsuit settlement on George Stephanopoulos, his chief political anchor, defenestrating him. Mark Zuckerberg, a preposterous figure. He talks about masculinity. No man who slithers on his belly, no matter how much he likes to roll around on a mat, should be talking about masculinity to any men or women, anywhere, at any time. These are soft people who think they're tough. These are bad Americans when the country needs good ones. These are self-indulgent and self-interested people, powerful people who are terrified that they may lose something. No, not the country. They're not worried about what's happening in California. Their main focus is on being nice to Trump. But let me ask a question. Is Donald Trump being nice? Is he being nice to California when in the middle of suffering he piles on? Is Donald Trump being nice when he smears and he assaults and he disdains on his poisonous social media accounts? Is Pete Hegseth nice at the Republican women's event when he allegedly raped someone? Is Pete Hegseth nice to the military? Kristi Noem, she nice to her dog? Most of these people are sick, unfit, and catastrophes about to happen. Donald Trump will make clear his malice. He'll make clear his intentions. And the American people will have two choices: lay down and roll over, or stand up and hold firm. Did you elect Donald Trump to invade Canada, threaten Denmark, invade Panama, Mexico? Did you elect Donald Trump to punish California? Here's the deal. Donald Trump may overreach 10 minutes into his term. If he does, we must be ready to oppose it. America has gone through many brutal hours of testing. This is but another one. The unknown is if we are like those people who measured up or not. When you look around, there's a lot of reason to believe we're not. The good news is, when all of those people who did measure up looked around in their time, a great many people said, we're not like the people who measured up before. And yet, the American people measure up, even if our leaders do not, over and over and over again. Here at The Warning, we will not be nice to Trump. We will confront Trump, because what Trump stands for needs confrontation, constantly, relentlessly, focused, consistent confrontation, where reality is put forward, the truth is asserted, and there is no backing down from what's coming next. Scott Jennings gave you a preview. It's sneering, it's smug, it's nasty, and it's idiotic. Scott Jennings, he knows as much about forest policy and land use issues in the West as he does about nuclear physics. He's saying words that he knows nothing about. He's a fool in an era of them. But we will make it through, as we have before. I'm Steve Schmidt. This is The Warning, and I invite you to subscribe on our Substack, on our YouTube channel. Follow us. Welcome to the community.